erupting in New York City right now with Palestinian protests. And where is Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg? Well, he's busy prosecuting former President Donald Trump on, excuse the pun, trumped up charges in this Manhattan hush money trial. Now, more than 100 protesters were already hauled away by New York City's NYPD cops as they chanted in support of Palestinians near Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's home in Brooklyn, believe it or not. So Chuck Schumer's home is located in Brooklyn, and they basically brought the party to his house. Columbia University gave a 2 p.m. ultimatum to vacate their mini tent city on campus, but they still failed to begin trying to rein in their very disruptive anti-Israel protesters that were camping out on the grounds. Now, officials at this prestigious Ivy League school in Manhattan, they finally claimed a little bit well, I would say much later, that they finally began kind of handing out suspensions to students who didn't heed the order to vacate. Columbia University Vice President of Public Affairs, Ben Chang, he said that suspended students will be ineligible to finish out their semester or graduate. He also described the encampment as creating an unwelcoming environment for many of the Jewish students and a noisy distraction that interferes with teaching and learning. Now, in the midst of all of this chaos in the Big Apple, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg, instead of fighting crime, he launches a Trump show trial. Yeah. So as former U.S. Representatives Lee Zeldin, he put it, instead of leading with courage to defend New Yorkers by enacting the necessary changes to make life safer, to make life freer, and to make life more affordable, our elected officials have set their sights elsewhere, trying to imprison and even bankrupt former President Donald Trump, who is President Biden's chief political opponent. Now, I see a bunch of you guys already in the comments already. How are you guys doing this evening? We've got Puppet Gate. We got Jose Lamelli. What's going on, everyone? Nanish Crochet Corner. We've got Papa V, Lawanda. Awesome. Hey, I just want to ask you guys, if you could take 1 second, hit the like button for the video. Let's get the truth out here, guys. We are fighting in 2024 for freedom of speech, the Second Amendment, the Eighth Amendment, and to get the truth out here, guys. We're always at odds with suppression. So I really appreciate the support from you guys. I also want to thank you so much for always sharing these videos on social media. Thank you guys. All right. So all eyes are right now on 100 Center Street, where Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has launched his show. Basically, it's a show trial in the world's media capital. Now, according to legal experts, never before has a charge like this been brought without evidence of an underlying crime. Now, I want to ask you guys, do you think Donald Trump is guilty of any of the charges that DA Alvin Bragg of Manhattan is bringing against Donald Trump? If you think Donald Trump is innocent of all of the charges, type in innocent. If you think he's guilty, type in guilty. I want to see from you guys. Now, as Zeldin said, this unprecedented abuse, corruption of power, and prosecutorial overreach is nothing less than a threat to democracy. And it's not just him that's saying this. In fact, a New York Times guest essay, Boston University professor by the name of Jed Sugarman, he argued that DA Bragg was overreaching in his attempts to try a federal election crime under New York state law. And he went on to say that the Manhattan's DA allegation against Donald Trump was vague, since the prosecution failed to specify an election crime or even a valid theory of fraud. And at this point, it's definitely time for us to kind of take a look at these trumped up charges and the overall chaotic landscape that's unfolding in New York City right now. I see a lot of you guys in the comment section. Keith Usury saying Donald Trump is innocent. Poppy Dilling says deport Bragg. Puppet Gates says DA Bragg is a salty lib. Annette Thompson says Trump is innocent as hell. Wow, I'm seeing a lot of innocent in here. All right, guys. So I think I know where you guys stand now. First, a little bit of boots on the ground. on the situation here going on in New York City with this whole pro-Palestinian protest at the colleges going across NYC.
In graduation. Encampments continue sprawled at Columbia University as students call for the school to divest funds away from companies they say profit from the Israel-Hamas war.
They're super tenacious. They're really cool. Like, they're all are really fighting for something.
A similar scene also playing out at FIT and CCNY. Yesterday, White House officials were asked about campus protests across the country and whether police should be used to break them up.
People should have the ability to air their views and to share their perspectives publicly, but it has to be peaceful. We'll leave it to local authorities to determine how these protests are managed.
Meanwhile, over in the Middle East, the International Criminal Court could be issuing arrest warrants to both Israeli and Hamas leaders, according to the New York Times. Prime Minister Netanyahu and other top officials could reportedly face charges.
Now, I got to ask you guys, with things like this happening right now, Trump supporters, they're having trouble understanding why anyone would vote for Biden with all of the damage that he's done to this country. Can you guys come up with any reasons why anybody would want to vote for Biden? A matter of fact, can you think of who would vote for Biden? Now, just looking at the stats, more than 100 protesters were hauled away by NYPD cops as they chanted in support of Palestinians near Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's home in Brooklyn. And so, according to this, the anti-Israel protesters, including many from Jewish activist organizations, were arrested after they refused to budge from blocking traffic at Grand Army Plaza during the protest, where they're calling Cedar in the streets. And I looked at some of the footage, and protesters were either standing or they were sitting in the street with their arms kind of like linked together. And they were chanting things like ceasefire now, let Gaza live. Now, according to a tweet from organizers, thousands of U.S. Jews with Jewish Voice for Peace, if not now, and one other group, they were actually holding an emergency Passover Seder, shutting down the streets of Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer's home in order to demand that he actually stop sending weapons to the Israeli government as it carries out basically it's horrible acts. Let's just put it that way. So protesters are projected. They're also projected pro-Palestinian messages on Brooklyn Public Library, including no one is free until everyone is free. But anyway, believe it or not, very shockingly, Congress has pulled it off yet again. So Congress just passed a $95.3 billion aid package on Tuesday for Ukraine and for Israel, as well as in defense for Taiwan. About $17 billion would actually be going toward Israel, which has been in a war against the terrorist group Hamas with Palestine ever since the terror group's deadly assault on October 7th. Now, Chuck Schumer is actually saying that this is one of the most consequential measures that Congress has passed in years to protect America's security and the future of democracy. Now, I want you guys to understand, not a dollar went to our southern border, protecting, the U.S.-Mexico border, along the border between Mexico and Texas and Southern California and Arizona. Not a dollar. So how is this the most consequential measure that Congress has passed in years to protect America's security? That's my question for you guys. I think we completely got gypped. And I also want to ask you guys, do you think Mike Johnson did the right thing bringing this to the floor? And do you think he should have done more? Do you think he did exactly what he should have done? Just let me know what you guys think about Mike Johnson. But now, let's look at what this foreign aid is doing to our country, okay? Now, if you're just tuning in, guys, I would totally appreciate you guys if you took a second, hit the like button for the video. Consider subscribing to the channel. I do my best to keep you guys updated, and there's a little bell icon down below if you want to be notified whenever we go live, whenever we release new videos. I totally do appreciate you guys. And we're also going to be diving deep into the current events, rocking New York City, and of course, the controversy that surrounds Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's priorities. We got to get into that. So I got several things that I want to bring to you guys tonight. So one of the hot spots for these New York City protests is Columbia University. So they began handing out suspensions. The school vice president of public affairs, Ben Chang, he said suspended students will be ineligible to finish out their semester or even graduate. He also added that the Columbia University protest encampment is creating an unwelcoming environment for many of their Jewish students and a noisy distraction that interferes with teaching and with learning. And so cops are not allowed on campus without authorization from the university this time. But police sources have already confirmed that busloads of NYPD police officers are literally standing by if they're summoned by the university. But administrators, this is what I'm talking about when I say money talks, okay? Administrators had not asked cops to move in to remove students from the $90,000 per year campus as it did on April 18th, during which 108 demonstrators were dragged away in cuffs. Apparently, the parents of the kids were not happy, and they were like, look, we're not going to keep paying $90,000 a year in tuition fees to go to Columbia University if you're going to treat our kids like this. So Columbia University was forced to reassess how they handle things. Do you think that the college is handling things appropriately? I'd love to hear from you guys. Now, then, of course, we got Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. Oh, boy. So DA Alvin Bragg, he's in the middle of all of this New York chaos. Still busy prosecuting Trump and whatever he can piece together. It's like a freaking Jenga puzzle, this guy here. Anyway, doing his best to prosecute Donald Trump in what people are calling the hush money show trial. And so former United States Representative Lee Zeldin, he wrote a piece about it. And the general state of New York recently basically seems like a lot of people across the board are feeling like New York City just isn't the same anymore. It's just not. And many people believe New York has literally become a clear example of how extreme left-wing policies can drive people away. And just look at Times Square, where recently two NYPD officers were attacked by a group of criminal aliens who were released from jail with no bail. This is a problem, guys. Good old in DA Alvin Bragg's infinite wisdom, this is likely one of his felonies that he downgraded to a misdemeanor and didn't even require a bail. So why even bother putting somebody in jail? They're just, like, whatever. It's more of an inconvenience than a punishment, if you ask me. Now, if it's not that, it's the subways, which feel more like a scene from a crime drama, maybe a GTA 3, Grand Theft Auto 3, Grand Theft Auto 4, if it ever comes out, with commuters anxious about getting randomly punched or pushed onto oncoming trains. Can you believe that? Like, this is the kind of city that New York has turned into. And we have lots of people to thank for this. We can certainly thank DA Alvin Bragg and Attorney General Letitia James. And it's also really hard to ignore the recent increase in assaults, like countless women getting sucker punched lately in broad daylight. Can you imagine seeing a woman getting punched in the face, like from some random dude? I mean, like, I think I would just lose my stuff. Okay. So anyway, meanwhile, too many kids are poorly performing in public schools. They're trapped in cycles of poverty that seem to go on for generations. The list goes on and on. Local businesses are closing up shop. Homeowners can't protect their properties. You got squatters left and right. Property taxes are going through the roof. And to top it off, just the general cost of living keeps climbing, all while life in the city seems to just keep getting tougher and tougher every single day. Rent prices keep increasing, and it's as if the city is rotting from the inside out. And it certainly doesn't help with the massive influx of illegal aliens, illegal migrants flooding New York City. But this is what sanctuary cities have essentially invited upon themselves? What do you guys think? Do you think that these cities, these sanctuary cities like New York City, have brought these problems upon themselves? Let me know, guys. But it's as if the city is rotting, though. You know, it's affected by the policies that seem to favor the criminals over the hardworking citizens and the businesses. It's crazy. Now, with all this being said, Donald Trump's supporters, they're saying that it's just shameful that any self-proclaimed Republican would not support the former president. Now, according to Zeldin, instead of tackling the real issues head on, it feels like our leaders are distracted, focusing on trying to imprison and even bankrupt President Joe Biden's chief political opponent, Donald Trump. Now, this trial happening at the heart of the media world in Manhattan is being called a spectacle. It's a strategic move that's more about politics than it is about justice. Let's be honest with you guys, right? And of course, as Zeldin said, this unprecedented abuse of power and prosecutorial overreach, it's nothing less than a threat to our democracy. And so even the judge in this case, Juan Merchan, he's under scrutiny for potential bias given his political donations and his daughter's political activities. I mean, we covered this before. Zeldin described Merchan as a left-wing Biden-Harris 2020 campaign donor. And this is the guy that's supposed to give Donald Trump a fair trial. Somehow I doubt that's really going to happen. So Merchan, he refuses to recuse himself despite overwhelming evidence of bias against the former president. Couple that with the fact that his daughter is a prominent Democratic operative actively using this case to fundraise for Adam Schiff, of all people. Her past clients include the Biden-Harris and Chuck Schumer group. And of course, after Trump criticized him for this, Merchan slapped him with a gag order. Unbelievable. So, I can't make this stuff up, guys. I know how frustrated you have to be. Now, a lot of people are just kind of seeing this as stripping the former president, Donald Trump, of his First Amendment right to defend himself against false charges. I mean, he can't even call the judge out for having biases without getting hit with a gag order. Unbelievable. And so, you know, as for the trial's location in the ultra-liberal Manhattan, finding an unbiased jury just kind of seems like a long shot. The situation, it's not about Trump. Experts say it reflects a bigger, broader strategy by some to limit his political future. This is a very coordinated effort by a plethora of partisans across the country to bankrupt, to imprison, and to destroy Donald Trump, including attempts to keep him off the ballots in some states. Now, amidst all of this stuff, the Democrats are actually still trying to convince voters that things like rising crime is just a perception. So people who think that crime is rising, it's all in your head. It's not really happening. This is what the Democrats are trying to convince people right now. They're trying to convince people that the economy has never been stronger, that the border has never been more secure, despite what many people are clearly seeing and experiencing. Now, I got to ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think that the economy has never been better? I mean, are your paychecks bigger than ever before? Are you being able to purchase more with $100 in the grocery store than you've ever been able to purchase before? Are gas prices at all-time lows? I mean, is the border more secure today than it was when Trump was in office? Let me know, guys, because I think that this is probably what they call gaslighting, right? Like, I think this is what they call gaslighting. Anyway, so in contrast, Donald Trump, he's actively campaigning, making the best of this pretty crappy situation, talking directly to Americans about their concerns and aiming to shape up the political landscape. And so this could be a pivotal moment here, guys, drawing support even from those who've traditionally voted Democrat. But now a lot of those folks who traditionally would vote Democrat, they're now questioning their Democratic loyalty. They're really thinking about voting for Trump now, and they're coming out of the woodworks saying this loudly and proudly. In fact, this year could very well mark the formation of a broad coalition that's ready to just kind of change the entire status quo and push back on the desperate political maneuvers by the left. So what do you guys think? I feel like this year we could see a massive shift. In fact, there are a lot of demographics, specifically Black people and Hispanic, Latino communities. There are a lot of people who are really considering and planning to vote differently than how they have voted typically in the past. Now, as Zeldin said in his think piece, the left can and will hurl every last desperate attack that it can in order to conjure up, at Donald Trump. But the American people, the American public can and must see right through it in order to save our country. Let me know, comment down below if you think that we'll be able to save our country in 2024. Let me know in the comments, guys. And so, kind of like my uncle said, Alvin Bragg made up those charges. He will suffer the boomerang effect, and he himself will probably end up getting charged soon. Now, legal experts, they pretty much weighed in on this whole hush money trial in New York. So you got Jed Handelsman Sugarman, law professor at Boston University. He made the case that Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg might be stretching it a little bit, trying to prosecute a federal election crime under New York state law. He called the allegation against Donald Trump vague, pointing out that the prosecution failed to specify an election crime or even a valid theory of fraud. So Sugarman even criticized Alvin Bragg's approach as weak, commenting that realistically, it's perfectly legal for a candidate to pay for a non-disclosure agreement. NDAs are absolutely legal, guys. In fact, anyway, so he also highlighted three major issues with DA Bragg's attempt to bring a federal crime to a state court. So first, he pointed out how no previous case of any state prosecutor relying on a federal election campaign act has existed. And this is one example of overreach. Secondly, he mentioned that the prosecutors didn't cite any kind of judicial precedents involving the criminal statute at hand. So there's no example that you can lean on, that the DA, Alvin Bragg, can lean on and say, hey, this is what we've done in the past, because they haven't done it in the past. This is the first time that they've ever made this kind of crap up. And this is why this is so important, because this could very well set the precedent going forward for all future presidents. And lastly, he explained that New York precedent does not support an interpretation of defrauding the general public. So Sugarman also raised concerns that the case might be more about Manhattan politics than the law itself, describing the situation as a prosecutorial ethics embarrassment and a case of apparent selective prosecution. Did you guys hear that? Prosecutorial ethics embarrassment and a case of apparent selective prosecution. Now, let me know your thoughts, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Is what Alvin Bragg doing a matter of political persecution and basically election interference? Should Alvin Bragg be brought up on election interference charges? Should Fani Willis be brought up on election interference charges? Should Joe Biden be brought up on election interference charges? Let me know in the comments, guys. Let me know where you stand. I know we covered a lot. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Let's see. We got a lot of folks in the comments. What's going on, John Gardner? John Gardner says, only save USA if Trump comes in hard. Public 8 says, Alvin Bragg has bacon-flavored toothpaste. Oh, my God. That's kind of funny. Let's see. Cynthia Carlos says, not if Biden gets another term. I think Cynthia's talking about, can we save America? Not if Biden gets another term. Um, yeah, yeah. What's going on, Nana's Crochet Corner? Um, Poppy Dilling says, in my neighborhood, people are living on the streets and all their belongings are in stolen shopping carts. Wow. Oh, man. That's awful. Cynthia Carlos plans to move to a remote island. How many of you guys are planning to move out of the United States? The problem is, for me, I just can't really think of a better place to live still, in spite of all the issues that we have here in America. Yeah, Keenan Ripon. I don't know. Let's see. Don't know if you know this, Ron, but a Republican brought a compliment against Jack Smith earlier this evening. Really? Do you mean a compliment or a complaint, Keenan? And if it's a compliment, I bet $10 that it probably was Mitch McConnell if it was a compliment. Let's see. Rob H. Company is talking about layoffs. Oh, that's not good. Rob, are you talking about your company or just companies in general talking about layoffs? Let me know, man. Let's see. Who else we got up in here? John Gardner says, nope, it's never been worse. I think you're talking about the economy. Stephanie Fisher says, gaslighting media corporation, GMC. Oh, man, these folks are, in fact, delusional. Hedy Lamar says that our economy sucks. Sunny Shore says, on the next episode of Jerry Springer, Political Lifestyle, the White House Rumble. Unbelievable, guys. Unbelievable. Keenan Ripon. So it was complaint, not compliment. Okay. Yeah. Just craziness. God, man. Anyway, so guys, I just want to say thank you so much for rocking with me today. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for sharing these videos to get the truth out here, guys. Really appreciate you hanging out with me. I'm already working on the next video, believe it or not, and then I'm gonna get some rest and do it all again tomorrow. I'll see you guys on the next one. Be safe.